Hello and good morning, you two. How are you doing today?
Hey, good morning, Arrow. You definitely have the coolest name of any interviewer we've had so far.
Bro, do you want to switch names? Is that possible? Can we do that?
I'm always in the market for that. Whatever's going to get me more ratings. But you know how it is when it comes to names. It's like the titles of your podcast. If you don't put something out there that's catchy, then why should we check in?
I can't tell you how long we went back and forth on names trying to get this thing, and it's cool how I couldn't imagine this podcast being named anything different. But if you'd asked me that 6 months ago, I'd have paid you for the right name, and God's Country kind of fell out of the air. So it's kind of cool how those things find themselves.
Well, I love it because you're not afraid of that God word, and it's like, okay, I'm going there. If that's what they're going to put out there, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna figure out how they're going to do these interviews and really get up close and personal with the people they're talking with.
For sure, man, and it's something we're not scared of at all. We're faith folks and rooted in it, and hey, man. That's how you describe a beautiful place. You've heard people say, "Man, I'm headed back to God's country," regardless of what that is. Me personally, I feel like that's a holler in Tennessee. But it can to each his own. It could be anywhere for anybody.
What is it about the land right here in the South? Because I'm here in Carolina, and I speak very highly of this land as well. Especially, I live in a forest where it is just beautiful with deer, hawk, owls. There is a connection between us and the universe, isn't there?
Absolutely, man, and I just feel fortunate to be. We've been blessed to travel, around the country and hunt different places and fish different rivers and all that. But honestly, man, I tell everybody this on that about second to last day when we're about to come home. I can't wait to get on that plane and fly into Nashville and kind of look under me and see the landscape and see where God's country is to me. Like Dan said, God's country can be anywhere for anybody, and for us, man, it's the middle of Tennessee and the volunteer state, and there's something beautiful about that. Yeah, and there's deer and fish and turkeys and squirrels and I wouldn't want to live anywhere else, man.
Don't you like just walking out there and being with the animals? Because it's like they don't fear you if you're with them every day. They just kind of get used to you.
Yeah, I got to be honest. The ones around me don't.
Oh.
But some of them do. But it's going to hide out a little more September to December. But yeah, back in the spring, them jokers they'll eat right out of your hands.
That's right. That's right. What I love about your podcast is the fact that you're showing listeners that every country musician or person of fame is a real mom, a real dad, and they have a real life. And you bring that out of them.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time. It was intended to be a probably heavier country music podcast than it was lifestyle. But what we're seeing is it's probably 80-20 lifestyle to music. We have to kind of give questions occasionally to bring it back to the fact that we're musicians, because they get so excited to talk about their own hunting stories or their kids or their lifestyle stories, and honestly, that's more fun for us anyway. So there is definitely music in there sprinkled in, but it's funny watching them or having to kind of lead them back to the fact that we all play music.
But Dolly Parton is one that said that country music is nothing but a musical newspaper. It's how cities used to talk to each other, those small towns and villages.
That's a great way of putting it. Honestly, I've never heard that quote, but it is. It feels like that.
Even in today's country music, I mean, so much of it is in question because they think it sounds like the old early 70s with classic rock. But my God, it's still about the storytelling.
Yeah, and that's been rooted in country music ever since the start of it. We write what we live, and we live out here in the country, and we're hunting and we're fishing and we're hanging out with our family, and we drive trucks and we don't clean them, and that's kind of the content that we write about and the stories that we try to put into our songs.
And I'm not embarrassed by that. I think that
not at all.
I think that's something to be proud of more than and to look down on. You know, it's a great way of life, and I wouldn't change it for nothing.
Oh my God, you're so right about that, because I mean, I grew up in Montana and Wyoming, and we were on that ranch in Ranchester, Wyoming. Man, that inside of that truck was our toolbox, and people would go, "God, you got so many tools in here. You never know when you're going to need that tool." And to this day, I still live that lifestyle. It's like I've got to have everything with me no matter where I go.
Absolutely, man, and I'm glad you brought up like Montana and Wyoming, because I think there's this thing that people think country's a Southern thing, or country's an out in the sticks thing.
Yeah.
Man, country's countrywide, and I think, I don't know, somebody put that from Montana, Wyoming, California, New York. Man, country's country.
And I'll tell you this: those same people that'll make fun of your truck will be real happy when you're the one fixing their tire on the side of the road with all those tools in the back.
That is so true. But you know, that lifestyle out there on that ranch so early in my life, I mean, I still have that perseverance, because I mean, those cattle weren't going to wait to get fed. They needed to be fed, and so did those chickens.
Yeah, that's on you, dude.
Yeah, you really did it then. They don't wait on you. They want you to be there.
That's right. So when you sat down with Josh Thompson, what was it that led you to Wigwam, Stolen Deer, and Pouring Concrete? Because that's such a unique title, and I really, once again, you know, the title is what draws me to something to listen to it.
Yeah, man, Josh has been a buddy of ours. You know, he was obviously somebody that we looked up to, moving to town, and we knew his name and knew his songs and all that, and that's part of the cool thing about this podcast and being a writer in town and working in town with these guys that we're interviewing, is that I know a lot about Josh Thompson, but I had no clue he lived in a wigwam or had a deer stolen, anything like that. So in these interviews and these conversations, man, you're getting to learn even more about some of your best buddies in their life and some of the greatest stories that they've got that they haven't told you. You know, and that's what you don't know when you sit down and the cameras turn on and the record thing, the sign starts. You don't know what you're going to get into.
That's
but
right.
Man, with Josh, we got a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, but don't you love those moments when all of a sudden the walls come down and you're able to step inside that storyline with them?
Yeah, it was for me personally. It got to a point where he started talking about, we were Paiuting deadfalls and eating mice, and they couldn't. Apparently, they couldn't. I don't want to tell the whole podcast, but apparently they couldn't hunt. They had to just live off what they got, and so people would donate deer to them. And anyway, he was talking about sitting around in wigwams with all these different people, and I was like, man, are you sure this wasn't a cult? Because it's starting to sound a whole lot like a cult.
But yet Josh's father believed in him so much that he said, you got to get to Nashville. I love it when fathers kind of get into the parade and say, let's move you. We got to get you moving.
Yeah, man. You know, you see a lot of these movies and a lot of this stuff as fathers going, you know, you got to work, you got to make money, but it's a familiar story for us too, because just like Josh's dad, our dad's the same way, man. He's a believer in chasing your dream and following your heart, and kind of being pushed toward Nashville and toward a career that's, you know, a lot. The percentage is not good to make it and be successful in it, but to have a support system behind you, especially your dad, man, is pretty special, and that was cool hearing Josh say that about his.
Do you realize that with each one of your episodes, you're actually creating a listener's museum piece? And the reason why I bring that up is because I did an interview with Roy Clark back in 2014, and that thing is still getting thousands of hits. And so I look up to people like yourself because you are so close to the industry and you are getting the real, authentic stories.
Yeah, no, I haven't thought about that at all.
Cool way to say it, yeah.
But now that you have brought that to my the forefront, my price just went up. So I appreciate that.
Well, it's because you guys are getting the real thing. I mean, for the longest time, as I was growing up, the only thing that we had was hee-haw and magazines.
Hey, man, hee-haw wasn't that bad.
I love hee-haw. I was always there for that.
Was that TNN?
No, that actually, I want to say that was CBS when it first started out, just because that was back in the day when there was only 3 channels, and we were just religiously on that show every Saturday night because my dad had to see his Buck Owens.
Yeah, man, Minnie Pearl, I remember.
Oh, yeah. Do you ever get into that point where it's like, okay, you have that question that you prep for that you're going, I don't know, I don't know if I should use this question. I don't know if we should go on it, but you end up doing it anyway, such as the subject of getting into a creative rut. Some people don't want to talk about that, but you guys have a way of getting through that.
Yeah, I think it's that common ground that
we've been through it before,
that we were talking about. It's easier to ask somebody a question that you've kind of dealt with yourself before, and you can kind of work through it together and asking those types of things. Yeah, it is, but that's what we want this podcast and this space to be is a vulnerable, honest platform where we can get on and say what's in our heart and what's on our minds and give our guest an opportunity to do the same, man.
Do you have the power of editing? Do you guys have control of that, or do you have to turn that in?
Well, there are some points where we have to go, hey, could you clip that at an hour and 5 minutes? You kind of make mental notes, and the more we say really dumb stuff, the better we're getting at recognizing where that point is and how to cut it.
We have a great team that helps with all of that, and we've got some veto power, but at the same time, we have a great team around us that's doing a lot of that for us.
Thanks, iHeart, for sending us grace, no doubt.
Well, I'm so glad that you guys are talking about the team, because in this day of podcasting where everybody can do it and is doing it, there's so many people that are trying to do it on their own, and it really requires teamwork, especially the two of you. I mean, brothers getting along? This is something new.
It ain't always like that.
Yeah, and to expand on that, man, we did that. We tried to do it on our own, and we're sitting here at my house in my little studio in my basement, and I'm looking at ancient pieces of studio equipment and boards that we used to run, and we didn't know what we were doing, man, and we got by and had a few episodes, but at the same time, now that we're sitting in these chairs and on this side of the desk, man, it's a lot easier to have people there hitting the start button and you not freaking out and making sure that the microphones are on. And so it's a lot smoother, a lot easier, and it frees up creatively me and Dan just to be hosts and to be interviewers instead of worrying about if we got the levels right on their volumes and microphones.
My God. You're so right about that. Oh my! Well, how do you control yourself when you go in the studio then? Because I'm sure you guys are engineering your own projects.
We do. We kind of produce our own demos and have produced a few artists in the past. And to me, that's one of the most fun things about being a writer is getting in there and being able to. I mean, and honestly, we're working with literally the top 1% players, studio musicians in the world. So to be honest, they make us sound good. It's not really much of what we have to say, yeah. But we'll take all the credit. Thanks, boys.
Can you imagine country music or any music without those studio musicians? Because look at what the group Toto did. They took their talents, made a band, but we still took our eyes off those studio musicians that are constantly there.
Yeah, and there's such a staple in sound now. It's not even really just country music, but the listener, because of commercial music, has gotten to a place to where your ear just hears perfect, and those guys are so good that's how it's going to come out every time, and it's really amazing just to sit and watch. I'm sure you've been in the studio with them before, but just the way they even the language, and the dialect that they use is pretty amazing.
Yeah. What inspires you about doing this podcast? What are you learning as students?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're learning that these guys and these artists and these superstars that we're interviewing, man, they're just like everybody else. They, especially with the ones that have kids and have a life like ours, man. We're learning that they talk about their hometowns just like we do, and they. They live a lot like everybody else, and their job might be a little bit different, but man, most of them are grounded and foundational, just like we are, and everybody else is.
It opens the door to relatability as well. Even whether it be the listener or us, you really learn that they are the same people we are. One pan flag at a time.
Yeah.
Maybe those pants are a little more expensive, but we'll put them on the same way.
See, I learned all that when I was with Mickey Gilley back in the 1980s, and he sat down with me and he goes, "Do you think I'm here for me? I'm here for them, and that's why I will shake every person's hand that comes up to this stage."
Yeah, man, you see those people who rush off, and I understand that too after a long run or just being on the road for a long time. It wears you down, but there's a real appreciation for those people that go out of their way to make sure that everybody feels special, especially the ones that paid to sit on that front row and hung out all show just so they could get a selfie with you.
One of the things about having a podcast is that you run into a lot of naysayers, people going, "I don't know, that's just a hobby." But you guys have lifted your game to a real hardcore, yes, this is very real level.
Well, we're still new, man. I mean, honestly, we were watching the other day when it was going up the charts, and our marketing team and management were sending us all these different updates.
Yeah.
And I kept asking myself, like, how do these people know that we even exist? Because there wasn't even a podcast out yet. It was just the intro. So the fact that people even care to know who we are is shocking. But as I get more and more famous, it's going to cost more for having me on these interviews. That was a joke.
Oh.
That was a joke, Harold. I was kidding.
No, I don't. But see, I took it as values in personal values, self-growth, and because as creative people, my God, there are times that we hit that valley floor and there's nobody around, and so you have something like a podcast and you learn from those other creative people how to pick yourself back up.
For sure, and it's a balance too, right? Of what matters and what doesn't, and that gets skewed sometimes in the music space because you're so busy trying to make sure that everyone's happy.
Yep.
But when you get a platform like this and the ability to really converse and talk to each other and be honest with each other, you never know what's going to come out.
It's so true. All right, guys, when you guys come to Carolina, we got to get together and have a podcast face to face.
Oh, man,
I'm with that, dude. I'm absolutely with that.
Well, you guys be brilliant today, okay?
Thanks,
Hey,
man.
you too, brother.
Thanks for taking some time out for us.